Hi friends, welcome to my channel. In today's video, we will be setting up the last video for 2024 in my reading journal, and that is the month of December. I read 9 books for this month. However, when I first set up my reading journal back in 2024, I did not account for however many books I was going to read for the year. And so the amount of book shelfies that I created is way less than the total amount of books that I read. Or I thought of maybe potentially adding some add-ons to it, but I think I'm just going to leave it like this and just not worry about it. I didn't really try to make an effort to complete the reading challenges that I had set up for this year. My favorite book for December was The Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. I ended up starting the Red Rising series this month, so I read 2 of the books from that series. Now, as you saw, I didn't fully fill up my book bracket for 2024 yet. I'm thinking of making one more video, and that will include the 2024 book bracket, as well as some of the book stats and book awards that I tend to give at the end of the year. So I haven't started working on the spread yet. I'm very far behind with any of my spreads, to be honest. And so I'm kind of looking forward to creating a separate video on that. And once I finish all of those additional spreads, then I can finally create a final flip through of my 2024 reading journal. So now I'm working on my December cover page. My cover pages in my reading journal also act as my stats page for that month too. So that's why I use 2-page spreads. Outer border, I wanted that to be a thicker line, and then for the inner border I took on a smaller micron pen, and it's just like a much thinner line. Now, this was a really good reading month for me. I actually started a NetGalley account for this month, and so you will see that some of the books that I read are ARCs or advanced readers copies that haven't been made available yet, and I was very lucky to get approved for a few right away, so I tried to get them done as quickly as I could so that I could maintain my ratio on NetGalley. At the time that I'm recording this video, my NetGalley ratio has gone to shit. But hey, at least during the December month, I was pretty on top of it. Now I feel like I requested way too many books, and I don't have the time to read all of them in a timely manner. So sorry, publishers. For the decoration of this page, I'm using some stickers from Paperminty Studio. I got these in her Black Friday sale. It was just a box of mysterious stickers and washi tape, and I was really happy with almost everything I got since I didn't really have anything from her, so this was all new to me. And this sticker sheet was in that box, and this is one of her Christmassy things, and I thought that it would look very cute with the December spread. I then went in with my micron pen. I just added a little line so that they're kind of attached to the ceiling. When I created the border, I did mess up on the right side, so I have an extra little line in there, and then I decided to just use one more of these globes. This way it was totally planned, you guys. I then took some of the little stars and sparkles from the sticker sheet, and then I just put them all over the spread. Sticking to the Christmassy, cozy winter vibes, I used some other Paperminty Studio sticker sheet. And then I just used my Tombow brush pen to just write out the month of December. I'm creating 4 different sections in the spread. The first one is going to have a list of all of the books that I read for the month. The second part is going to have stats about the author, which includes gender, race, and also the nationality. The third section is all about the genres that I read. So this includes whether I read a fiction versus nonfiction, what the genre was, if it was adult versus YA, or if it had any LGBTQ+ representation. And the last section is just like a high-level summary of how my rating for this month went, and also the platform in which I read the book. So the percentage or the distribution between physical, ebook, and audio. I'm going with my Micron fine liner, creating the borders, and then I'm gonna fill it up with my Tombow dual brush pen. I always need to pencil it out first when it comes to stats, because a lot of times when I haven't done that, I've mistaken the place. So like in the genre section, I would put author nationality and so forth. It was always like a mess up. So now I've learned from my mistakes, and I always need to have it penciled out first. I feel like I had a pretty diverse set of books this month. For once, I have an almost equal representation of female versus male authors, which hardly ever happens in my reads since I primarily read female authors. So for this month, I read 5 female and 4 male authors. You know, I'm kind of like considering if I should do a distinct count for these stats rather than like a total count, because the male author, for example, 2 of them is the same person, so I don't know if I should count that as 4. Realistically, it's only 3 male authors. All of them were white. In terms of nationality, I did have quite the representation this month. 3 were from the US, 1 was from Belarus, 1 from Sweden, 2 from Palestine, and 2 from the UK. In terms of genre, I read 6 fiction and 3 nonfiction, and this is a big win for me because I hardly ever read nonfiction, so I'm pretty happy with this. Sadly, none of them had any LGBTQ+ representation. 7 were adult and 2 were YA. In terms of genre, I read 2 historical fiction, 2 sci-fi, 2 poetry, 1 about witchcraft, 1 mystery, and 1 romantasy. I mean, I don't know if I should call it fantasy or romance, so I just grouped it. And then in terms of the rating, 1 was a 3-star, 3 were 4 stars, and 5 were 5 stars. Like, this is a really good reading month. In terms of the format, 4 of them were ebooks, 4 were audio, and 1 was physical. So this was my cover page for this month. The first book that I read was Forest of Noise by Mossab Abu Toha. Sorry if I'm butchering that name. Written under an onslaught of bombardments and violence against the Palestinian people over the past year, the author's collection of poetry chronicles the daily horrors juxtaposed with dreams of peaceful moments that only sharpen the trauma in contrast. Haunting, horrific, yet gorgeously captured and expressed, this book demonstrates the growth of the author as a poet and chronicler of terror, but also as a deep-feeling soul who uses his heart to give voice to the hundreds of thousands trapped in these daily struggles. I think it's an important collection and a must read. In terms of the spread, the washi tape that I use is from Lila Journals, and then the pet tape and everything else that you're seeing is from Paperminty Studio. The girl pet tape was a little bit too translucent, so that's why I transferred it into a white page to give it a little bit more of like a solid background, and then it makes it pop up a little bit more. Then went in with my letter stamps, and I really love these ones. They're so fun to use. I think I got them at AliExpress. I'm going to link everything in the description below, so if there's any material that you find interesting, feel free to purchase. Sometimes I'll have discount codes associated with them too, so it's up to you however you want to use it. Now, the one thing that I noticed with these stamps is that if I put the entire word in the stamp block, some letters don't come through and I have to like go again with my pen. So I recommend just doing one at a time, even though it is annoying. And that's what I plan on doing going forward. There was a little bit too much empty space, so I just went in with some additional elements from the Paperminty Studio pet tape. The second book that I read is Minor Detail by Adania Shipley. This is also set in Palestine, and it's a short book broken up in two parts. In part 1, we see the true story of a young Bedouin girl in 1950s Palestine being taken and raped, then murdered by Israeli soldiers. In part 2, we follow a Palestinian journalist from Ramallah as she tries to learn more about the woman's story. The first part is written in a detached third-person voice. It seems like it from the journal entries an Israeli soldier who found and abused the Bedouini girl. The horrific story of this girl isn't even on this guy's priority list, and the disconnect tone makes it all the more haunting as you see how terrible act is nothing but a minor detail in the lives of these soldiers. I found this first part a little disjointed and very hard to get through, but that was the point. The second part is written in the more personal first person as we follow a young journalist who grows obsessed with Bedouin's story, solely because it happened 25 years before the day she was born. The story hits just as hard as we follow her in present-day Palestine and observe all the obstacles and dangers she faces when she is just trying to get more information. We follow her as she goes from Ramallah to Tel Aviv. In terms of the spread, everything that you see here is from Paperminty Studio, including the washi tape and then the stickers. I then went in with my micron pen and added a little bit of a border around it. The next book that I read is Motherfield by Julia Shimafitsieva. Oh my god, I cannot pronounce it. I'm so sorry. This is another poetry book, and it's weird because I hardly ever read poetry, but somehow for this month I ended up reading 2 poetry books. This book is half poetry and half diary of the protests of Belarus. Julia was born in an area of rural Belarus that became a Chernobyl zone during her childhood. The book opens with the poet's diary recording the course of violence unfolding in Belarus since its 2020 presidential election. Motherfield paints an intimate portrait as the poet struggles with fear, despair, and guilt as she goes to protests, escapes the police, longs for readership, learns about the detention of family and friends, and ultimately chooses life in exile. In terms of the spread, the washi tape is from Paperminty Studio. All of the pet tape, the girl and the abstract thingies, those are from London Gifties. I was a little bit annoyed with the washi tape because it ripped apart so easily. And like sometimes that's okay, but I wanted like a full washi tape line for the spread, and I just did not get that. So I just made do with what I had. It's just this washi tape is very difficult to work with for some reason. Like my previous spreads, I just went in with my macaron and added a little border around it. And then I filled the border with my Tombow dual brush pen. For the title, I used my Tombow Fudenosuke pen, which is kind of like a thinner brush pen, I would say. And I didn't have enough space to write Motherfield together, so I just separated it between Mother and Field. The next book that I read is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. This is a mystery novel, and it was very famous a few years ago. I just somehow missed the boat. But I needed to read a book about Sweden in my Read Around the World challenge, and I figured since this one was so popular a while ago, I would just pick it up. It's a really long book. It's a multi-layered story with several different mysteries that are sometimes closely and sometimes loosely intertwined. There is a historical disappearance, a hunt for a serial killer, and even a financial mystery, all wrapped up in one. Along the way, we're introduced to 2 compelling protagonists in Blomqvist and Salander, and together they make a fascinating and unstoppable team. The story is dark and disturbing. The original Swedish title is directly translated as Men Who Hate Women, and that is a more fitting title for this book. So be warned if you haven't read it yet, and if you want to read it, there's a lot of difficult topics that are introduced with this book. In terms of the spread, I used the same washi tape from Paperminty Studio, and for the abstract and the girl, those are pet tape from London Gifties. One thing that I didn't really like about this book is that the story seems to think that people of the opposite sex cannot possibly coexist in the same place without wanting to jump each other's bones immediately, no matter their circumstances or their backgrounds or really anything. Random thoughts aside though, I did enjoy the book. While I wouldn't say it was the perfect mystery for me, I did find it gripping and compelling and ultimately satisfying. The next 2 books are the first 2 books in the Red Rising trilogy by Pierce Brown. This might be my new favorite series ever. I am obsessed. I did the graphic audio version for the first book and then half of the second book, and it is so well done. I could not put it down. I literally introduce everyone I know to this series because it's just incredible. In Red Rising, we're introduced to Darrow, a 16-year-old miner who toils deep in the mines of Mars a few hundred years into the future. Humanity has spread across the solar system and has been organized into a strict caste system of colors, with gold at the top and red at the bottom. Darrow is a red, but he's making the most of his hard life in the mines. He has a beautiful wife, Io, and though the Reds live in object poverty, they are a proud, tough clan. They've been told that they're pioneers on Mars, making the planet habitable through their hard lives mining helium-3, and someday the surface of the planet will be able to support life thanks to their efforts. Then Darrow's life is shattered when he and his wife are arrested for trespassing in a garden that is restricted to the Bronze administration. He is plucked from the jaws of death by a resistance group known as the Sons of Ares. Using advanced genetic manipulation, they make Darrow into a gold and send him to infiltrate the Institute, the training academy, which produces all the top leaders of the society that controls the solar system. There's a lot of fan art about this book, so I just went on Pinterest and searched for it, so I just printed some of the fan art that I found. In terms of the title, I wanted to make it a little bit like neon-y, similar to how the book cover has the font. I didn't really produce a very good job at it. But basically, I just went in with my Posca markers. First, I went in with the white, and then I surrounded the text with the red Posca marker. I thought giving it like a little middle color would make it pop up a little bit more, but that didn't really work very well for me. So I just let it be. So the second book, Golden Sun, is probably like one of my favorites. Like the first book was really good, but the second, oh my god, that ending, I was not over it. Like I was literally in a reading coma after finishing that book. It was incredible. So well done. It's focused primarily on war and politics, plots and treason that put you on constant alert. One of my favorite characters, Severo, has a pretty big character growth, I would say, in this second book. And I really love him. He's so funny and he's amazing. There is so much manipulation. It's the way that I think about the series is kind of like Game of Thrones, but in space. So everything that Game of Thrones has, this one has and does it a lot better. And yeah, if you haven't read Red Rising yet, I highly recommend it. I then took my scissors and kind of cut around the title. I did a similar thing in terms of the font with the title of the Golden Sun, where I started with my white Posca marker, but then instead of red, I used yellow or goldish, I guess. Well, it's mostly yellow to go around it. And then for the third book, I'll be using the blue. I don't want to talk a lot about Golden Sun because I do not want to spoil anything that might have happened in Red Rising if you haven't read it yet. So I'm just not gonna say anything anymore. And then, yeah, just enjoy the music for the rest of this setup. next book I read is Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. This is like a dark romantasy, I would say. And the story is set in a sort of alternative New Orleans where paranormal creatures and occurrences aren't outside of the realm of possibility. We follow our main character, Ophelia Grimm, after the unexpected death of her mother, a necromancer, whose magic she's now inherited. Ophelia is left with her younger sister, Genevieve, as her only family. They reside in the Grimm family home, which they discover they are close to losing due to their mother's unresolved debts. Genevieve believes she has a solution to their problems as she enters a traveling competition known as Phantasma. The grand prize is a wish granted. The kicker is that most contestants don't make it out alive. Phantasma is a cursed manor where the contestants must reside while they compete. It's made out of 9 levels, each containing its own unique challenge. If Ophelia is to have a hope of finding her sister, she must successfully complete each level. When a charming phantom, Blackwell, assures Ophelia he can help and guide her through the levels, she knows she shouldn't trust him, but what choice does she have? I'll be honest, this book taught me so much about how ghosts fuck. I had no clue. Very educational, very demure. And so it's an interesting read for sure. It's very intriguing. I had some scrapbooking paper that I thought would go great with this spread, and that's where I also wrote the name of the title, Phantasma. Kind of like try to follow the font that the book cover has. All of the scrapbooking stuff I bought at Michael's a while ago. I think it was probably one of their Halloween drops a few years back. So I'm not sure if it is still on their website, but if I can find it, I will link it down below. I used my gold jelly roll to write the title, but I felt like it needed a little bit more of a hump. So I took out my gold watercolor set and kind of just went over it with the watercolor. If I was to do just the watercolor alone, it wouldn't be strong enough. So that's why I tend to always go beneath with some kind of like a metallic jelly roll, and then on top I go with the watercolor. It just makes it pop up a little bit more. I then went in with my scissors and just cut around it. This old sticker book from Michael's as well a while ago, and it has a lot of like ghostly kind of skulls and drinks and stuff like that. So I just took them and put them down, stick them up. The next book I read is The Vanishing Bookstore by Helen Pfeiffer. This book is a fantasy novel interwoven with historical elements centered around the Salem witch trials of 1692. The story follows Dora and her enigmatic witchy aunts as Dora embarks on a quest to locate the titular Vanishing Bookstore, hoping to break a curse that has plagued her family. The chapters seamlessly alternate between the past and the present. Initially, I was thrilled to dive into this book. As a fan of fantasy and witchcraft, theme tales, the premise held great promise. The book starts on a strong note, building intrigue and atmosphere. However, it falters midway through and struggles to regain its footing. The narrative loses momentum, and I found myself persevering more out of determination than enjoyment. The novel reads very YA, even though it's an adult. And even though the main character, Dora, is supposed to be like 31 years old, her behavior and dialogue lean towards being very childlike, making her difficult to connect with as a protagonist. In terms of the spread, the washi tape is from Marigona Sully Art, and then the Witchy Girl is one of her thank you cards that I received, so I just cut it around and then I just glued it in it. The last book that I read for this month is The Witch of the Forest Guide to Folklore Magic. This was also another ARC that I got at NetGalley, so thank you so much for granting me the wish. This book is an absolute gem for anyone intrigued by the magical threads that weave through history, nature, and our daily lives. The beautifully crafted book strikes the perfect balance between accessible beginner-friendly guidance and deep, meaningful exploration of folklore traditions. I really love learning about the mythological stories behind some of my favorite herbs and flowers. In terms of the spread, I'm using washi tape from Simply Gilded. And then the stickers that you see are from Marigona Sully Art. One of my favorite stories that I learned from this book, and I don't know how true it is or not, but I really enjoyed it, was the story of mint. Like the mint. Apparently in Greek mythology, Hades, the god of underworld, was fooling around with one of the nymphs, as gods in Greek mythology often do, and Persephone, his wife, was jealous. So instead of taking it out on her husband, obviously she had to go attack the poor nymph. So she cursed the nymph and made it so that the nymph would turn into a plant that people would step on. Hades was unable to reverse the curse that Persephone did, so instead he made it so that whenever the mint is crushed by humans, it's gonna start smelling nice. I thought it was kind of cute. It's tragic obviously because she turned a person into a flower, but it was cute. I forgot to film how I stamped out the title, Folklore Magick, but it's just one of my stamp sets. And then I took my Magna Carta Flex pen to write the rest of the title. The ink that I inked it up with is Ferris Wheel Press Marble Majesty, something like that. But yeah, one thing that I noticed is that it did feather a little bit. So I know I get a lot of questions asked, like, is the Archer and Olive journal fountain pen friendly? And the answer is sometimes. If you use flex pens and flex nibs, there is a high chance that it might feather or it might bleed through sometimes. But if I've used any other nib, like a fine, extra fine, medium, broad, anything like that, I haven't really noticed any feathering or bleed through, only when it comes to the flex. So those were all of the spreads for this month. Thank you so much for sticking with me through the end, and I hope you enjoyed some of the spreads and found a new book that you want to pick up in the new year.